Before I begin, I will say this is from someone who did not play 2K24, as I only recently got it for pre-ordering 2K25. So I do mention throughout, but a lot of features I say are new may have been in 2K24, and I just didn't know, as I have tried to correct that by stating I was wrong. However, I cannot go through both games trying to find every detail. There's not much to talk about musically. It's a mix of rock and rap along with superstar themes. I personally only have about 5 or 6 songs selected, that being Cody Rhodes' theme, Rhea Ripley's theme, Randy Orton's theme, Fuel by Eminem, Halfway to Heaven by Jelly Roll, and CM Punk's theme. I don't really pay too much attention to the music though, so I put on what I knew I wouldn't mind hearing and moved on. Sound design hasn't changed too much over the years, so there's not much to speak on here. I had a weird glitch where one of the commentators said I made a tag in a one-on-one casket match, so that was kind of weird. The biggest change to presentation is the fact that you can now change the camera angles during the entrances, and honestly, it's okay. I rarely play with entrances on, and that made me watch 1 or 2, and it became the same thing over and over. I can see the appeal for certain superstars, but it's just not my cup of tea, I guess you could say. You can switch to like a spectator camera, so it's almost as if you're in the crowd watching the entrances. I would have actually liked to see if they had added SummerSlam 2022 if I could get to the area I was sitting at. That would have been kind of cool. Gameplay wise, they added a trading punches minigame where the loser is stunned, and I find this happening at random, and it's becoming less and less fun every time it occurs because it's occurring so often. It just seems to take up more time than needed. We also have the return of chain wrestling, which hasn't changed much from what I can remember, as it's been multiple years since it was implemented. It boasts one of the largest rosters in any WWE game in the past, with over 300 superstars. I'm not entirely sure if the 300 is including the different personas you can unlock, or if that's personas included. And it gives you 50 plus created wrestler slots. I couldn't find the exact number, but you're also going to get 4 DLCs in the future that has everyone talking, mostly for bad reasons. Has multiple celebrities and NBA players added as DLC, which could have been 2K's call, but let's face it, WWE loves their celebrities, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was their call. I personally won't be buying them without a sale, that's for sure, though they did add Penta into the DLC, and he just joined WWE in late January, so that's epic. As well as a DX pack with Billy Gunn, who is currently signed with AEW, so I can only think that this is part of a Legends deal, or he has a deal with 2K themselves. They've also added intergender matches, so the matchups in this game are literally limitless. The Bloodline Showcase, I don't normally play the Showcase mode, but as an older fan, I've been watching for 30 plus years. Playing some of these classic matches was amazing, and having the legendary Paul Heyman introduce every single match, along with comments from our tribal chief Roman Reigns and the Timu chief Solo Sikoa. The only thing that was missing was the Usos. And, if they could have gotten The Rock to pop in for one or two things, that would have been pretty excellent. This was honestly one of the few showcase modes I played from start to finish since 30 years of WrestleMania in 2K14. Since I now have 2K24, I'm going to be checking out 40 years of WrestleMania, though it's not without its faults. They added time objectives, and that almost killed the mode for me. I legitimately almost didn't finish it due to the timed objective on the Tamina match. If you have played through this, you will understand I had to drop it down to easy, which I never do, but it gives you 30 seconds or something like that to deal a certain amount of damage to Natalya, and it's a ladder match. So you've got very few options to do. Not just a ladder match, but a multi-person ladder match. My GM mode is where I've spent the majority of my time. Trying to maintain morale, stamina, and keep popularity high, as well as balancing a budget, is extremely addicting. As it's more of a relaxing kind of mode, it's basically competitive wrestling booking simulator, and I love my simulators. However, I will say it's kind of annoying there is no vacate title option unless you fire the superstar. While it's not game breaking, it does add to strategy. I have encountered points where my champion got injured for 7 weeks, so almost a quarter of the season, leaving me without that title for nearly 2 PLEs worth of time. I do believe it was towards the end of the season, so it didn't really matter too much, but it still was irritating nonetheless. As I said, it's not game breaking, it's just annoying. My GM doesn't allow for intergender matches, which is kind of a letdown, as we are missing a few titles. Though we do have the big ones, the intergender matches is probably the biggest issue for me, as this was the major addition that everyone was talking about. I did end up finishing my career in first place, and it does give some in-game rewards, so that's a nice touch. However, not everyone will want to use these rewards, as it's tied to my faction. Speaking of my faction, not much has really changed since its incarnation. They have added it in a few years ago. That being said, it was always one of my more played game modes, simply because I enjoy the grind. It gives me a reason to keep coming back to the game and do more with the game. They've added new persona cards to unlock through my faction this year, which I just recently found out was in 2K24 as well. However, in this year's game, you can use them throughout other modes as well, such as CM Punk 2010, Ultimate Warrior with no face paint, and most of which can be unlocked through World Tour. I say most of which because at the time of writing, I didn't realize just how many there were and how many different ways there were to unlock them. World Tour mode is more just a test of your team, like the rest of my faction. I don't really like that they restrict the rarity of the cards you can use in some matches though, as when you're starting out in Orlando, you're restricted to silver and bronze, maybe gold, I'm not 100% certain. You unlock several sapphire cards through the showcase, so If you have any of those, they're unusable in World Tour mode until later on. There are also Persona cards for completing certain collections, as well as more My Faction Point or virtual currency grinding, BC. The first thing I noticed was the card market, and up until now I thought it was a brand new feature until I loaded up 2K24 and saw it there. So I guess I missed out on a few things. It hasn't changed though. The fact that it's still here is a nice way to eliminate some of the RNG. Ranked play, quick play, weekly towers, faction wars all make their return. Faction war tickets system, or the faction war ticket system makes it almost like a roguelike game mode, which I also recently found out was in 2K24 as well. I know you're probably getting tired of hearing that, but I'm trying to right my wrongs. Universe mode, not much to say here, as I rarely spend time with Universe mode, though this year they did kind of add incentive to play Universe, as they brought back the in-game unlockables. Back in the early SmackDown games, they had like WWE Cash or something along those lines. They brought that back. So they've got several superstars locked behind that grind. I've never really found interest in Universe mode outside of like maybe creating content for YouTube, though I've heard complaints that it hasn't truly progressed and there's no voiceover for promos. It all feels very lackluster. You can use a superstar from the game and simply follow their matches and feuds, or go by all the matches and booking everything like in its original incarnation. My Rise, I honestly don't think I've completed a My Rise story, which is kind of sad, as I remember when they announced the 2K partnership, I was big on NBA 2K with their My Career mode, and it felt so much more in-depth than what they brought to My Rise. Even earlier modes had that feel. It seemed to be heading in the direction of pure in-depth career, but we never got that. If we could have a career mode similar to SmackDown 2 with branching paths, multiple storylines, different angles, that would be amazing, but 2K presentation and style. It seemed like that's the direction they were going not even 8 years or so ago with 2K17. However, we get subpar storytelling that makes it feel more like a single-player action game as opposed to a wrestling career, which is what I personally wanted from these games forever. I've never met someone who said, I'm only buying WWE for My Rise, though a few people have told me they were buying NBA for the career mode. Saying that, they may have completely changed NBA up as well. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That small rant out of the way. They did include branching paths this year, so there may be some replayability. From what I'm seeing, it does seem like the most interesting My Rise in years, though I don't know that I would really play through it more than once just to get the unlockables. And after writing this portion, I have found that some unlockables are tied behind the choices made throughout the story. They even added an option to see which choices you have made. However, I cannot say for certain if this shows up on a second playthrough, as I am still on my first. Now for the island, the big divisive game mode because this is where the main portion of microtransactions come into play. While that may be the case, you have absolutely no need to buy VC in this game. It is an option to speed things along. As with every loss, you earn 75 VC. Every victory, you earn 150 VC. So it's not an issue to me. The island is actually quite impressive, as every time I log in, I see an Easter egg that I didn't notice before. Like the statue of Damien, Jake the Snake's pet snake, or Al Snow's dog Pepper in the cemetery. And if you don't know Al Snow's dog Pepper, just look up the feud between Al Snow and the Big Boss Man back in the 90s. And Pepper was a big part of that. I want to say that was the match that culminated in the Kennel from Hell. It has a single player experience, which you battle other created superstar NPCs in WWE superstars alike for a WWE contract in a mode that I believe has more promise than my Rise, in my honest opinion. It's not without its faults, as servers are extremely unstable and causes major lag. I've also encountered infinite load screens on the island, but no other mode. And after writing that, I actually encountered the infinite load screen on my faction, though it's not as prevalent as in the island. I always try PvP, but it's never main focus of mine in WWE games because they've always had server problems. So I may never touch PvP. I may try it out. I don't know. It reminds me a lot of Street Fighter 6's World Tour mode, as the island has a ton of promise. It just needs a lot more polish. Overall, if you're a diehard fan, I would say pick it up. I skipped last year's game, so I was pleasantly surprised by the amount of changes I saw from taking a year break. But please, if you do buy this game, do not buy virtual currency. Just go into the first match of the island and lose over and over again. You earn 75 VC per loss, and it gives it to you every time. I just can't justify buying microtransaction on a game that servers will not last long after the next iteration is released. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.